New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Hello, and welcome to Rockin the Love. I'm Robyn.
And I'm Gil, and we are happy to be with you today. This is a fine day to be hanging out together. Whew.
It's hot here.
It's a warm day. Yes, it is. It is a hot day, and that's okay. Where you are, we hope that it's a little cooler or that you're in a pool or something. So enjoy your day. So we're coming to you on Wednesday, 1 in the afternoon Mountain Time, 12 Pacific.
June 18th.
June 18th.
Crazy as that is.
Yeah.
It is the middle of the year.
It is the middle of the year.
It's
almost.
What do you mean almost?
Almost. Well, I mean, technically the middle of the year would be the end of June, right?
Why?
Because then there'd be 6 months left of the year. July, August, September, October, November, December.
Okay. You're right.
Yeah.
I was going by the numbers in the month. But never mind.
I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah.
But
the dates, the calendar date. Never mind.
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
It's
perfectly doesn't matter because
fine.
my logic rarely makes sense to you.
Rarely.
Yeah.
Rarely. That is something that's interesting. I mean, why would I be attracted to a person who has no logic? Okay, no logic. No logic that complies with my logic. How's that?
Yeah.
That's a better way to say it. But
yeah.
why would that have brought me? So, it's just an interesting question.
Okay. Yeah. So moving into the relationship corner. I want to say hi to Shay. Hey, Shay. Good to see you. We're just having marital moment. So glad you could join us. You seem to be present in many of them anyway. What's she saying?
And catch us on the replay.
Okay.
All right. We'll look for you there.
Yeah. So much happening. So much happening in the world. What's happening in your world? Let us know. Let us know in the chat. What a week. I mean, it's been a busy week. I mean, starting from No Kings and all of that stuff. I mean, I don't know. The weeks just seem really full to me. We've had vacationers here. We've had visitors, which is super fun.
Really fun.
Really fun. We had our friend Mitch, who was traveling through on his way to North Carolina. And then we had our friends come from California, Deb and Kelly. They were here for a week. And we had an overnight guest that's coming back in July with his wife, Leah and Michael. And it's been it's really nice. I don't know. For me, I don't know if it's like this for you, but for me, since I don't really, you've been here almost 3 years. I've only been here, this will be a year in July. It's like really important to have old friends around, friends that have been in our life for a long time.
Yeah, it's nice to have those connections and reconnect and spend time and do that. Yeah, it definitely is. Anytime you go to somewhere new, it's takes a minute to get used to it and to develop the same kind of friendships there. So we're just going to hold Shay in prayer, knowing that all is well and that her self-care is exactly what she needs right now.
And we know this not only for Shay, but for anyone listening. Whatever your prayer is, that you are being cared for and provided for, and that all is well. So, sending you lots of love, Shay, and prayers and good thoughts. And the same to all of you listening out there. As I've said before, we know you're out there because you tell us. You drop little clues during the week when you say, "Oh, like on Rockin the Love." And we appreciate you so much. We appreciate you. So thanks for joining us. But I think what you're saying about relationship is really what got us to our topic for the day, which is the lessons we've learned from relationships. Now, this could be past romantic relationships, marriages, partnerships, friendships, any
Current. Current relationships.
Yeah, wherever you learn. But I mean, it could be, if you're a teacher, it could be relationships with your students. God knows my students have taught me things along the way. But just what you've learned from past relationships, So we're going to be talking about that in a little bit after the break. But first, I think we should just go to good news because it's been such a great, we said it. It's been a busy week.
It's been very busy, busy. And I'm really impressed with all of the folks that showed up. I heard someone describing their goal of going to a protest on Saturday and how they were frustrated at first because the traffic was all backed up. And then they were like, oh, this is great. So many people are going.
Yeah, it's really about how we hold it, right? What we're thinking, and that's spirit's funny, as if we all didn't know that. But I mean, we constantly have these opportunities to realign our thinking and have it working for our good, right? So yeah, there was a lot. Most everyone I heard in the protest department were so happy to be there and just so connected. It said it felt really connected
and fun. Yeah, and they got to meet some cool people and all of that. So yeah, I know it was a big day in all over the country, and we just keep doing what we know is right.
That's all we can do. That's all we can do because justice will prevail. Truth will prevail. That's what I know. So, with that, the truth is that there is so much good happening in the world that we never hear about, that we like to highlight it here on the show. So this is the good news.
Here's the good news. You could be experiencing a shortage of hydrogen peroxide in the near future. Why, you might ask? Because in Spain, they have developed a hydrogen peroxide fuel for spaceships, replacing the very toxic, how do you say it, hydrazine, which is used now. And I thought that was just fascinating that, an everyday household item that, we use to clean out our cuts or clean out our ears or whatever we use it for. And there it is being used as rocket fuel going forward. So this company in Spain has been developing this. They've actually done a prototype and flown the rocket. And I'm very interested to see where this goes. But what a great environmental / economic story. I mean, that could cut the costs of going into space like crazy. And the thought I had was, gosh, if you can do this for rocket fuel, what's the possibilities with jet fuel and all of that? So I don't know that there is one, but to me it made sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that makes sense that we're always, it always seems hopeful. Like if they can do this, then they should be able to do this. That's very exciting. That's I love that. Well, my story is about a 21-year-old boy in New York who, with the groundbreaking gene therapy treatment, he is not in pain anymore from his sickle cell anemia, and he has been declared cured based on this. And they say it's groundbreaking. It's never been done before, and he literally was declared cured. And he said he declared it his new birthday, because if he could survive this, and all the pain he'd been in growing up, because he's had it all his life, that now he's unstoppable. And
wow. Yeah, I'd never heard of sickle cell anemia in a sentence with cured.
Yeah, me neither. I had
That's interesting.
I went to school with a kid who had sickle cell anemia, and just sweetest kid. And it was so sad, because what do you do? There was no cure, and everybody knew that, but not true. So it's good that they're finding that, and also they're thinking that will help with other genetic kind of diseases.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, that just brings forth the whole idea of gene therapy to a new level, I'm thinking. That's exciting.
Yeah, that's very exciting.
That's exciting. Woo! See, there's always something interesting and good happening out there. There's always people thinking and creating and being willing to do the thing that everyone else thinks is dumb.
not even thinks it's dumb, but everybody else thinks is impossible.
Right.
Or can't be done, or hasn't been done. I mean,
well, yeah,
so great.
Hasn't been done, therefore can't be done. It's just, those are not equal sentences. Just because it hasn't been done, it doesn't mean it can't be done.
Right. And what that says to me is, whatever you think you can do or can't do, let that go and do it. Just do it. Who knows what's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who knows?
Land in the mystery. All right. So take that mysterious mind of yours and settle in as we go to a break, and we'll be back in a few minutes right here on New Thought Media Network.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
are back, and we are back with John. Welcome, John.
Long
How
time no
exciting.
see, buddy.
Long time no talk. I think about calling you every day. I'm sorry. Anyway, it is done unto me as I believe, as you so graciously said. So I'm going to let that go and know that there is nothing that can break our bond of love. So love you. Anyway, glad you're here. Today we are talking about lessons we learn from relationships.
Oh my goodness. That sounds scary.
It is done unto you as you believe.
Yeah.
Some are scary, but like for me, what came up when we first started talking about this was not only relationships, like love relationships, but just, like I was trying to think of if I had to name like my 5 biggest teachers from relationships, one of them would just be like, my first grade teacher and things like that. I mean, those like kindergarten, first grade teachers where I learned about love. I learned about being, I learned about what was possible, kind of thing, until I got to my 4th grade teacher. And then
We learned what otherwise was possible. We never suspected was possible.
then I learned So, yeah. Okay. So, God, I always think I've healed that relationship, and it never fails that when I talk about it, I get famished. So, anyway, so what comes up for you?
Well, I think, human nature is such that we are so resistant to learning. It's so resistant to being told that we don't know something or we don't know enough. I think for many of us, that is a big thing. And so when, you get in that relationship, you go on that date, you walk into that job with that boss and they do something obnoxious, you immediately think they're obnoxious. And it's them. It's all about them, and we forget that every time we're with someone, there's some level at which we're dealing with the mirror. There's something there for us to learn, particularly when you walk into the next situation and the next situation, and you keep finding the same kinds of things coming up.
Okay.
You don't agree with me, do you?
Well, I just would.
I wish you'd agree with me, because then it would be so simple.
It's not that I don't agree with you. I just think you should speak from the eye, because you're not really. I don't think you're really stating facts. I mean, maybe, but I'm not sure that I have the same experience as you.
I think many of us do.
I'm not saying you don't have a team, a team that goes along with you. I'm just saying it is not true for everybody. But yeah, I mean, definitely, I think I know that I can be affected by how I perceive someone acting or what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And, yes, there have been times when I've let that define me, and other times when I haven't,
Yes. But have you found yourself in a particular type of relationship where you kept experiencing something in it that you didn't like, something about how, they didn't treat you right, they weren't honest, they were, one of those things. And then what is that that's showing up for you? That's the question, I think, when I think about it. What is it that's showing up for me in that situation when I keep walking into that?
And why it repeats itself?
Why does it repeat itself? Exactly. Because I think what's happening for me is that I'm needing to learn something that I'm not learning.
Well, I think that's
But
true.
we are taught, I believe, basically to assume that because we're all separate and we are all doing this on our own, that whatever's happening over there is not about me. It's about over there. It's about them. It's about whatever they're doing. And often, why are we there? Because there was something in us that attracted us, or brought us into that relationship, because something in it was comfortable, something in it felt right, even though we hate it.
Okay, I agree with that. So then the question becomes, who has taught you? What have you learned? Like, so you've been married more than once.
Mm-hmm.
What have you learned? As you left your marriage, your previous marriages or relationships with people, what did you take away? Like, is there something you've taken away that you didn't carry into the next relationship?
I don't know. I don't know that that's really true. I think more, I finally figured it out when we got together. I mean, more than figuring it out beforehand. Because I think there was a lot of resistance to it still at that point. But I did, I have discovered how much I am not happy with myself sometimes, and realize how much I put that on to other people.
And how much it affects the relationship.
Right. I mean, how much I perceive another person's interaction with me based on my own thoughts, rather than on whatever it is they may be trying to communicate. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
You think so?
Yes.
Don't be so encouraging.
No, it makes sense. I mean, it makes sense. I don't know if it makes sense out there. Obviously, I live with you, so it makes sense. But yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense. So, but I'm not hearing you say that has changed the situation, or that has shifted the situation. Like, I know that I've had relationships where maybe I didn't get treated as well as I should. Nothing abusive, nothing horrific, but it still wasn't an equal relationship. So there's certain boundaries and things that, as I went into my next relationship, were like a deal breaker, or I made sure there was no, that wasn't going to happen again in the same way. Not all of them. I mean, obviously, sometimes you have to learn a few times, and that's a good day. but you know
Just
what I mean?
a few.
You have to learn in different ways. The situation presents itself again in a different way. But so it still was more of something that I was at least aware of and could strive for.
Mm-hmm.
Some
Well,
level.
interesting. I was reading a blog from someone, and they were talking about this idea of going for opposites. When you have an experience with somebody in a relationship, and you get out of it, and you're like, oh, they were X, so I am not going to deal with anyone who's X. I'm going to go to Y. That's it. It's got to be different. And it's kind of like, what it struck me as in the description is, it's like when we go to the doctor and we say we have a headache, and they give us Tylenol. The headache feels better, but the brain tumor is still there. And because we didn't look for the brain tumor, we don't even know it's there, but we're trying to make it feel better. And eventually down the line, the Tylenol stops working and the head starts hurting again. And now we got to figure out what it is. And it's that kind of thing with relationship. We take this one thing that we identify, and we make sure we don't get that in another person. But really, the majority of what we've found in another person is still very comfortable to us, because we haven't acknowledged what is it that causes that to bother me. What is it? Am I too angry? Am I too, whatever it is? What is it that I'm responding to in this?
Right. So you're basically saying that you're not getting to the core root of the problem.
Right.
Core root of the problem. And as a whole in society, we like to focus on what didn't work.
Yes.
Or what's not working. So as opposed to going, I really love this. I really love that. I really love this.
Right.
This isn't working. Where can we make adjustments? Where can I learn here? What?
Yeah. And realizing that there's another list of things that are neither here nor there, or are slightly to one side or the other, that we aren't even talking about, so highlighting the ones that really work and really trying to pull that together,
Yeah. And what part, I think the real question becomes, and what part do I play in
right.
the part I don't like? So John says, I found that I was pulled into a relationship that was familiar to previous dysfunctional patterns to point me to a healing with myself and God. Also, always embracing love instead of judgment helped.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But the reality of that statement is finding your own healing, right? Finding one's own, realizing that there's something within me that needed to be healed. And that's what was coming forth in this relationship. Not something I could try to heal in someone else, not something that, whatever. But if I'm going to be in relationship with someone, I have to heal this that's showing up so that I can show up in my next iteration with my next boss, my next girlfriend, my next whatever it is.
Right. And I think that, there's some very basic metaphysical science of mind, new thought, whatever you're into there, concepts of the fact that, there's only one of us here on some level, or that whoever we're looking at is really mirroring us, those kind of things. And really, like in a relationship, especially, I think it's super important if you can, and it's work. It's really work. I mean, to be able to take that breath and allow yourself to feel what you're feeling as opposed to reacting to what's happening and what's triggering you, and letting that spiral into something else. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we were in a class last night, and I think they were talking about the stages of consciousness, etc. And one of the things that many of us particularly start out in, at least, is being a victim, that everything is done to us. So whenever there's an issue in a relationship, it's something that's been done to us. It's, I don't have a role in this. It's done to me. And so it's also about our it's an opportunity to begin spiritual growth. It's also often spiritual growth that we have to begin in order to get there. At the same time, to begin to take responsibility and know and realize that, oh, this is mirroring back something. This is a quality of myself I don't like, which is why I'm so angry that they have it. It's not really what they're doing. It's that I see myself in it and it pisses me off. It's not even that the relationship is bad in that way. It's just I recognize myself and I can't see it as myself. I see it as them.
Right. Well, and to us, the stage to us being done to me is a very relatable stage.
Oh, gosh, yes.
I mean, because you can get a lot of buy-in in that stage. People like to join you. People like to fix you. People like to save you. But anyway, if I start talking about, oh my God, the line at the post office is so long, someone else is going to tell me, I know, I can't stand going to the post office because it's that when I went, it was out the door. Really, when I went, it was around the block. And we get to, like, whatever that is, there's a participation, there's a camaraderie in it on some level,
I'm laughing because I just had that conversation.
About the post office?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. I was sitting up at the top of the peak with a friend, and she said something about they had come home one day and their mailboxes had been moved. They didn't even know where they were. Like, where'd they go? And finally they discovered that they had moved them to the end of the block so that they would have less trouble with vandalism, etc. And they couldn't get a key. They kept waiting for their key. They couldn't get a key. And they tried and they talked to people and couldn't get a key. And I piped in and go, well, we waited 3 or 4 months before we got our key.
It's a popular stage. All right, there's lots of comments here. Let's see. My ego gets in the way by focusing on the other person. God shows me what work I have to do on my own ways of behaving. True that. That's why I practice holistic healing. It gets the absolute root of the pain. Yeah.
Yes, going to the root, not
Yeah.
the symptom.
Yeah, and that's, that can be challenging because we all get caught in different stages of the thing. So what would you say, what relationship, it's not a trick question. What relationship has taught you the most about love?
This one? Is that the right answer?
I said it's not a trick question. No, I'm serious.
Well, honestly, in terms of this kind of relationship, I would say this one, and the other one I would say is with my father. Yeah.
Why with your father?
I think more it was about his demonstration, just the way he lived his life and the way he adapted, in different areas that were not necessarily great, or even areas that he needed to be involved in. He was involved in because he cared, and he was standing in love. But in particular, the last few years when he was taking care of my mom, it was just interesting to watch how dedicated he was to that process. When I'm pretty sure there was very little coming back in the relationship. She had Alzheimer's, and so it was a hell of a time.
Right.
But he was
committed,
going on their walks every day until she couldn't. But doing all the stuff that was best for her.
Yeah.
So I would say those two, and I think you, because you love me long enough that I can finally get around to realizing that I'm dumb. No, really realizing that I don't, that whatever's going on there's something there for me, and honestly, I don't have to beat myself up about it. I have to go, okay, what is this? And those are two different things too. Because if all we do is beat ourselves up about it, we become the victim again.
Yes.
And I speak from experience. That's an easy thing to do, because then I can feel sorry for myself because I'm the victim again.
Right. It takes you down a spiral.
Yeah. And we create the victimhood by ourselves.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, she doesn't love me because I did this and I did that. Well, what do I need to learn from all of that?
Well, and not only that, I just want to say for anyone like trying to decipher the pattern or what to do or how to move forward, that's the time where you can also turn those thoughts, listening to those thoughts, around to, I don't love me enough, to say them from the I and see what resonates. Because again, in that there's only one of us there, we're really mirroring each other. And usually if your thoughts are out there, they don't do this and they don't do that, they don't love me, do you love you? And that's where we start to do the healing work of going, well, yeah, geez, I really don't take care of myself the way I should. I guess I should eat a healthier diet or exercise, or why don't I get a manicure and pedicure once a month, or whatever it is for you, whatever's your love language or whatever it is you need, but really just start to explore those questions. And again, not beat yourself up. Be gentle. We've all gotten here, how we've gotten here, and we've survived this long, and we're here to do something. So, the ultimate goal is to let go of whatever's holding you back and be able to move into that space of love.
Right. And if we can't identify what's happening in us, then we can't show up in the way in which we are meant to show up in the world. You know, I was reading about vulnerability and this idea that, to me, being vulnerable is really about letting go of all the pretense about what, you know, about my self insecurities, etc. Because the reality is, when I'm honest and forthright and vulnerable, telling the truth, then the only reason that that's scary is because of the story I have in my head about what the results of that might be. You know, that somehow people won't like me, things won't go right, I'll get, you know, whatever it is. And until I can be in the space where I trust myself enough to know that it's okay and that I'm loved no matter what's happening out there, then it's harder to be vulnerable.
Yeah. John says, gentleness on the relationship path is essential for me and helps generate loving compassion. It's so much to try to love and really show up for me. It's true. It is. You know, there's the illusion that we think we're showing up for somebody else.
Right.
You know, and it's easier to show up and love somebody else, but like to love yourself. And, you know, and again, in relationships, that doesn't always look like you might think. You know, loving yourself may mean saying no and making your partner angry, confused, and again, it doesn't have to be a partner. It could be a boss. It could be a work relationship. It could be anything. You know, there are things sometimes that are asked of you on your job where you might want to say, no, I can't do that, or no, not right now, or no, not like this, or no, not with them. You know, and it's really just taking that moment to speak up for what you need.
Yeah. Yes, I will. I need to take that vacation I scheduled last month. You know, I can't not do it because it's part of my being able to show up here next month. You know, that kind of thing, and taking care of that. I made me think of something. You know, again from my dad, where he was on a job that he'd taken after he retired. He'd gone to another company and was doing some work in quality control. And they asked him to sign off some stuff, and he was like, "No, can't sign that off. It's not correct. It's not done. It's not whatever."
He didn't do it.
And he said, "No, I can't sign it off. You know, if you want to sign it off, that's up to you, but I won't sign it." And I think, for me, what I think about that is, that's loving yourself and knowing yourself enough to be vulnerable, put yourself out there and say no. And know that whatever the consequence is of that no, you're still okay.
Well, yeah, but it's also him. One of his core qualities was integrity.
Right.
I mean, he's standing in his integrity, and that's your dad. I mean, whether he, you know, is someone tells him to get off the bus, or, you know, he's standing in integrity. And if he loses his job, he loses his job. But he's not gonna put himself out like that. Right.
And that's what I meant by, you know, holding that line for yourself, and not being afraid of, oh, what will happen if I do this, and I really don't want to, and then feeling horrible about doing it later, even though you felt pressured to do it, you know, all that kind of stuff. Right?
Yeah. And I think what it's making me think of is, like, how much fear there is in the world right now, and all of that's going on. I mean, it's just calling me to that awareness.
Well, and how people use their, what appears to be power, to bring people into a place where they're afraid to be authentic. They're afraid to be vulnerable. Right?
Well, it's scary. It's the unknown.
I think about, you know, the reports on the very first cabinet meeting with President Trump this time around. Hey, you have a problem with anything, you can leave now. Well, there's a big, long discussion about what people think,
Right.
pretty
Not
well
really
ended it.
encouraging.
And so if you speak your mind, you're out. So do you speak your mind, or do you sit there and go, well, maybe I can make a difference if I stay and I'll try to do this? Or do you sit there and go, oh my God, I can't afford not to have this job? Whatever the thing is, whatever the story is in your head. Or do you go like, oh my God, I have to get to XYZ place in my career, and this is how I'm going to do it. So I'm there, whatever it is.
And I think that's a really good point, though, because how often that's another aspect of this topic. How often do we stay and not talk because we think we can make a difference?
Right.
How often do we stay in relationships and go, oh, they're just angry. I'll show them that they don't have to be angry. There's nothing to be angry at. And it's like,
Well, and the question again there is, are we looking at what we're supposed to learn in this situation, or are we still putting it outside? Because in that situation, am I supposed to learn how to really find the place where I can make the biggest difference? Is that one of my things? Because usually I just bail out and say, forget it. Or am I being called to learn that I need to stand in my whatever my integrity is in the moment, and this is it, and hold the line, but it could be all different things depending on who you are in that situation. What is it what is it here that's reflecting back to me that I need to understand?
And also how you've learned. As John said earlier, he discovered in one of his relationships, he was repeating patterns that he'd gone through in life, or familial patterns. Many of us have learned through pain and trauma and suffering and, all of those things. So it's like discovering, how you want to learn and moving that into taking care of yourself, trying to balance those two things. I want to welcome Jean out there. Hello, Jean. Thanks for joining us. Today, our topic is what we've learned from relationships. So that's what we've been discussing.
What do we learn? Well, and all this comes around to the idea we talk about so often, and that is that, relationship is not limited to interacting with another person. We have relationship with ourselves. What's our relationship? How are we in integrity with ourselves? How much are we willing to be vulnerable with ourselves and to acknowledge what's going on, whether we're sad at a loss, or whether we're realizing we're not doing what we said we would do, or whatever it is. But how often are we willing to be in integrity with that, with ourselves, let alone other people? And so then there's all those different kinds of things.
There is. And I think, like, sometimes I think having a teenager in the house, like I notice when we're having conversation with him, or it's a little more than conversation, a little bit more, but when we're trying to school him on something, and then I hear us turn around and do the same thing in an adult form, not being able to, acknowledge something or whatever. So it's really an ongoing challenge to keep yourself clean.
Yeah. And so, like in that example, when do we stop and go, okay, so why is this irritating me? Why am I invested in correcting this? Why, whatever the question is, what's happening that this is significant for me, right? And, is it really about the kid, the other person, the whatever it is? And parents go through that all the time. Obviously, I think our kids are destined and born to show up and point out all of our foibles.
Teach us.
Oh, is that what it is? Teach us? I thought they were here to just poke us like a bear.
Well, no, you go back to Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, like teach your children well, their parents hell.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess in summarizing it all, really, it's always going to be the same, folks. Sorry. You got to look at yourself. You got to look at really where you're coming from and what you're willing to do. And, you know, like Shay said, really dealing with um, herself to get to the root of the problem kind of thing. Um, and, and being honest with yourself. You know when you're in relationships that don't work or that there's an alarm going off in the back of your head. And so, it's really, like Gil has said, what are you afraid you're going to lose in that moment? Because chances are really good that you don't have it anyway.
Mm.
I'm afraid I'm going to lose love. I'm afraid I'm going to lose companionship. Well, if you're dealing with your partner cheating on you or not showing up or whatever they're doing, that's not love. So it's not happening now. So it's a really, I think that our journey is always about getting honest with ourselves and really seeing what's possible for ourselves and really understanding and knowing if you can't define what's good for you and what you deserve. Think about your best friend. Think about God. Think about somebody that you would give the world to and that deserves it all. And then just know that that's the same for you, if not magnified.
Well, that again is another aspect of the mirror. We when we have those positive interactions in relationships, what are we there to learn? What are they telling us about ourselves? Because what we'll tend to do is say, oh my gosh, Robyn, you are so good at being with people, and you're so funny, and you're so this, and not thinking, well, I see that funny and I see that person because that's some of who I am too, which is why I notice it, that kind of thing. I mean, we neglect ourselves. We neglect the positive learnings as much as we neglect the negative learnings, if you will.
Right.
Right. That's lack of a better way to say it.
And John says, taking my own daily inventory and compassion for my positives and negatives is my goal.
All right. That's a noble goal.
It is a noble goal, and it's a good thing to do. And I think the other thing is just to really know. I mean, it may take baby steps to figure out how much you deserve and how much you're worth. But it is continued practice and work to, journal and whatever you need to do to get there. Journal and talk and watch our show and other shows on New Thought Media that just give you, that spark that interest in you, that spark that inquisitive thing. And I think a lot of times we're afraid to let go of a relationship or get out of a relationship or change the relationship by saying what we think because we're afraid of losing it, like you said. And really, are we afraid? Are we only afraid of losing it, or are we afraid of the unknown and what that might bring us? What might we gain? That's the way I would rephrase it. And what might I live into if I didn't have this relationship holding me back?
Right. And what might happen if I acknowledge whatever the thing is that I'm seeing and go, oh, and go to my partner and be vulnerable and go, I realize this is what's happening. And I'm sorry, I don't want to do it. It's not what I see as the right thing, but this is where I've been. And, I've been thinking it's you because of this. Whatever that speech is, And really what we're afraid of is exactly what you said. We make up a story about what we're afraid about. What really we're afraid about is we have no idea whether that will suddenly create an understanding, whether by standing in that space we'll suddenly feel better about ourselves. We don't know.
Well, we're afraid of the unknown. And yet the truth is that's where we live. We don't know. As much as I think I know how the day's going to go, and we're going to do this, that, and this, and we're going to go to the movies tonight, and we're going to do this, and then we'll go to bed, and in the morning we got to be at this. I don't know. There could be any number of things that deter me from that plan. Yeah. And, same with government, same with life. People were like, well, if this person gets elected, I don't know what's going to happen. Well, if the other person gets elected, you don't know either. We don't know. And so can we embrace the unknown? Can we embrace the unknown and know the one thing we can know is that we control it on some level because we have the power to change what we do and where we stand and what we're in alignment with, what we're in integrity with. So that is our invitation to you, is to really be out there in the world, in your bodies, anchored, and taking that moment to really stop and think, what's your next best move? So let's see. Well, John wants to say something. He's chatty.
Yes, indeed.
We don't know. Yeah. All of those things are good. I mean, we've hit on great things and things that you all probably really know out there.
Yeah.
But the challenge is to implement them, So.
And to remember that being in a relationship, whatever it is an opportunity for us to grow rather than a sentence for, wanting to have love in our life. We have to put up with whatever. No, it's an opportunity for us to learn and understand ourselves better. And by doing that, eventually either improving the relationships we're in and or making changes that allow us to find relationships that really work better.
Right.
Yeah.
So John says ending with the divine matrix, and that makes me think, are you going to take the red pill or the blue pill? There's the easy way out, or you could stay there, and so it's up to you. And no matter what you do, we love you just the same. And so we're just sending you out lots of love and hope you'll come back and rock the love with us.
Absolutely. Rockin the love every week. We appreciate it. It's fun for us. If you have suggestions or thoughts, please send them to us at Robyn and Gil at rockinthelove.com and let us know what your ideas are.
I think it's Gil and Robyn.
No, it's Robyn and Gil.
Okay.
And Gil and Robyn. We have both. Anyway, the point is, we'll talk about this later. Point is, we'd love to hear from you, however that works for you. Check out other things on New Thought Media Network. They are our hosts, and we truly appreciate them and appreciate anything that you can do to support the network.
Yep. And thank you. We know we have some big donors on there today that are monthly donors, and they'll tell you that, even if you're giving $5 a month, it's great to just know that that's coming in so we can count on that to do some great things. So like giving our producer a paycheck. I've heard it's going to be the next fundraiser. So we'll see. Just kidding. We all do this out of the love of our hearts for making the world a better place. So we know that the world is a better place because you're in it. So keep rocking the love, everybody out there. The world needs it. We love you. Bye.
Rock on.